Claire Diamond stood in the sleek, glass-walled office of Luxe Haven's headquarters in New York, her fingers tracing the edge of a polished mahogany desk. The city skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, but her attention was fixed on the screen of her laptop, where a cascade of emails painted a troubling picture. 5 years ago, at 33, Claire had poured her heart and her savings into acquiring this chain of 11 high-end fashion boutiques. Her vision was clear: to create a brand that married luxury with accessibility, where every customer, regardless of their wallet or wardrobe, felt valued. But the email staring back at her told a different story. One message, time-stamped just after midnight, stood out. It was from Diane Miller, a loyal customer who had shopped at Luxe Haven since its early days. Diane's words were polite but sharp. "I visited your Manhattan store last week in a simple sweater and jeans. The staff barely acknowledged me. They fawned over a woman in a fur coat, but acted like I was invisible. I've spent thousands at your stores, Claire, but I've never felt so humiliated." Claire's stomach twisted. Diane wasn't just a customer. She was someone who believed in Claire's vision, who had championed Luxe Haven when it was still a risky venture. If Diane felt this way, how many others had walked away with the same sting? Claire leaned back in her leather chair, her dark hair pulled into a loose bun, a stark contrast to the polished updo she wore for board meetings. She was no stranger to being underestimated. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in Chicago, she'd spent her teenage years folding clothes at a department store, where managers dismissed her as just another kid and customers ignored her unless she was holding their size. Those years had fueled her ambition, pushing her through business school and into the cutthroat world of luxury retail. When she bought Luxe Haven, she'd vowed to make it different, a place where service meant respect, not judgment. But these complaints, now numbering over a dozen in the past month, suggested her vision was crumbling. She clicked through more emails. A young woman in Brooklyn wrote about being brushed off when she asked to try on a dress. A man in Boston described how staff hovered over him as if he might steal, all because he wore sneakers instead of loafers. The pattern was undeniable. Customers were being judged by their appearance. Claire's first instinct was to push back. "This can't be right," she told her executive team during a heated meeting the previous week. "We train our staff to treat everyone equally. This isn't who we are." But the complaints kept coming, each one chipping away at her confidence. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Rachel Brooks, her district manager, texting about a new marketing campaign. Claire ignored it. Marketing could wait. This was about the soul of her company. She stood, pacing the office, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. The more she thought about it, the clearer it became. She couldn't rely on reports or second-hand accounts. She needed to see it for herself. An idea sparked, one that felt both reckless and necessary. She'd go to the Manhattan store, the flagship of Luxe Haven undercover. No one there had met her in person. To them, she was just a name on company emails, a face on the website's leadership page. If there was a problem, she'd witness it firsthand. Claire stopped at the window, her reflection staring back at her. She wore a tailored blazer and silk blouse, her usual armor for boardrooms and investor meetings. That wouldn't do. If she was going to blend in, she needed to shed the CEO veneer. She grabbed her coat and headed home, her mind racing with a plan. By the time she reached her apartment, she'd already decided what to wear. A faded hoodie from her college days, worn jeans with a frayed hem, and scuffed sneakers she hadn't touched in years. She stood in front of her mirror, loosening her hair and letting it fall in messy waves. She skipped makeup, save for a touch of concealer to dull her features. The transformation was striking. Gone was the polished executive. In her place stood someone who could pass for a broke artist or a student on a budget. Perfect. The next morning, Claire stood outside the Manhattan store, clutching a neatly folded sweater she'd bought the previous month. The storefront gleamed under the morning sun, its gold-lettered sign reading Luxe Haven in elegant script. Inside, she could see the soft glow of chandeliers, racks of silk dresses, and shelves of leather handbags arranged with precision. A jazz playlist drifted through the glass doors, promising sophistication. But Claire's pulse quickened, not with excitement, but with apprehension. She took a deep breath, adjusted the hood of her sweater, and stepped inside. The air inside was cool, scented with a faint hint of lavender. The store was immaculate, every surface polished, every product displayed like a work of art. Employees moved with practiced grace, dressed in crisp black uniforms that screamed exclusivity. Claire's eyes scanned the room, landing on a tall woman at the front register. Her name tag read Emily Harper. Emily was chatting animatedly with a customer, a man in a tailored suit who exuded wealth. Her smile was bright, her gestures welcoming. Claire approached the counter, the sweater in her hands, and waited. Emily didn't even glance her way. "Excuse me," Claire said, her voice steady but soft. "I'd like to return this sweater." Emily's eyes flicked toward her, then back to the man in the suit. "Do you have a receipt?" she asked, her tone flat, almost bored. "No, but I bought it last week," Claire said. "It still has the tags." Emily sighed, barely hiding her irritation. Store policy. No receipt, no return. She turned back to the man, her smile returning as if Claire had vanished. Before Claire could respond, a woman in a designer coat swept up to the counter. Emily's demeanor shifted instantly. "Welcome in," she said, her voice warm and melodic. "How can I help you today?" Claire's jaw tightened. She was standing right there, yet Emily had dismissed her as if she were invisible. The woman in the coat laughed, holding up a scarf. "Oh, I never keep receipts," she said lightly. Emily's smile widened. "For you, I can make an exception. Let me process that right now." Claire stepped back, her heart pounding. It wasn't just a one-off mistake. This was deliberate. She scanned the store, noticing another employee, a young man with a name tag reading Ethan Carter, ignoring a girl in a simple sundress, while he rushed to help a man flashing a Rolex. The pattern was clear, and it made her blood boil. But there was one exception. A petite brunette, Sophie Bennett, approached the girl in the sundress with a genuine smile. "Hi, that's one of our best sellers," Sophie said warmly. "Want to see it in another color?" Claire watched, a flicker of hope cutting through her anger. Sophie was different. She treated the girl with the same respect she'd give a high roller. Claire made a mental note. She'd planned to visit other stores to stay undercover longer. But what she'd seen already was enough to confirm the complaints. This wasn't just a problem. It was a betrayal of everything Luxe Haven stood for. She clutched the sweater tighter, her resolve hardening. She wasn't leaving until she understood the full extent of this failure. And when she did, heads would roll. Claire Donovan stood near a rack of silk scarves, the soft fabric brushing against her fingers as she pretended to browse. The Luxe Haven store in Manhattan buzzed with quiet, elegant jazz notes floated from hidden speakers, and the air carried a faint lavender scent. But beneath the polished surface, Claire's pulse thrummed with a mix of anger and determination. She'd entered the store disguised as an unassuming customer, her faded hoodie and scuffed sneakers a deliberate contrast to her usual tailored blazers. The complaints about her staff's discriminatory behavior had already shaken her, but what she'd witnessed in her first 5 minutes, Emily Harper dismissing her return request while fawning over a designer-clad woman, confirmed her worst fears. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern, and she needed to see how deep it ran. She adjusted her thick glasses, a prop she'd dug out of a drawer to complete her disguise, and moved toward a display of leather handbags. Her eyes darted around the store, cataloging every interaction. Emily, the tall blonde at the register, was still chatting with the man in the tailored suit, her laughter bright and performative. Ethan Carter, another employee, hovered near a rack of cashmere sweaters, his posture relaxed, but his attention fixed on a woman in stilettos who was inspecting a pair of earrings. Meanwhile, a young woman in a simple sundress lingered near the handbag display, her fingers tracing the stitching of a sleek black tote. She looked hesitant, her shoulders hunched as if she felt out of place. Claire watched, waiting to see who would approach her. Ethan glanced at the woman but made no move. Instead, he strode past her to greet the woman in stilettos. "Those are from our new collection," he said, his voice warm and eager. "Would you like to see them in another color?" The woman smiled, clearly pleased, and Ethan launched into a detailed explanation of the craftsmanship. The girl in the sundress frowned, her hand dropping from the bag. She looked around, clearly hoping for help, but no one came. Claire's jaw tightened. She wanted to step in, to call out Ethan's blatant favoritism, but she forced herself to stay quiet. She needed more evidence, something undeniable. She moved closer to the counter, where Emily was now ringing up the man in the suit. "You're going to love this jacket," Emily said, her smile dazzling. "It's perfect for someone with your style." The man nodded, clearly flattered, and handed over a platinum credit card. Claire clutched the sweater she'd brought to return, its tag still attached, and stepped up to the counter again. "Excuse me," she said, louder this time. "I still need to return this." Emily's eyes flicked to her, irritation flashing across her face. "Like I said, no receipt, no return. Store policy." Her tone was clipped, her attention already drifting to a new customer, a man in a crisp blazer who'd just walked in. "Welcome in," she called, her voice suddenly honey-sweet. "Looking for anything special today?" Claire's stomach churned. She stepped back, blending into the background, but her mind was racing. Emily's dismissal wasn't just poor service. It was deliberate. She was choosing who deserved her attention based on nothing but appearances. Claire's gaze shifted to another customer who just entered, a man in his late 20s, wearing a worn jacket and sneakers with frayed laces. His name, she'd later learn, was Jason Lee. He hesitated near a rack of shirts, his fingers hovering over a navy button-down. He looked unsure, his eyes scanning the store as if expecting to be ignored. "Hey," Jason said, approaching Emily at the counter. "Do you have this shirt in a medium?" Emily didn't even look up from her phone, where she was tapping out. "A text. Whatever's out is what we have," she said flatly, her eyes still glued to the screen. Jason frowned. "I saw it in a smaller size over there. Could you check if—" "I just said." Emily cut him off, her voice sharp. "What's out is what we have." She glanced up briefly, her expression making it clear she had no interest in helping him. Before Jason could respond, a woman in a silk blouse and heels clicked into the store. Emily's demeanor shifted like a switch had been flipped. "Hi. There. Welcome in," she chirped, abandoning her phone to stride toward the woman. "Anything special I can help you find?" Jason stood frozen, the shirt still in his hand. He hesitated, then set it back on the rack, his shoulders slumping. Claire's chest tightened. She wanted to intervene, to demand Emily do her job, but she held back. She needed to see the full scope of this behavior. Jason lingered for a moment, then turned toward the door, his steps heavy. Claire made a mental note of his face. If she could find him later, she'd make this right. Just then, Sophie Bennett, the petite brunette Claire had noticed earlier, appeared from the back of the store. She spotted the girl in the sundress, who was still standing by the handbags, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Hi," Sophie said, her voice warm and genuine. "That's one of our best sellers. It's super versatile, great for work." Or a night out? Want to see it in another color? The girl's face lit up, her tension easing. Yes, actually, thank you, she said softly. Sophie led her to the counter, pulling out a navy version of the bag and chatting easily about its features. Claire watched, a flicker of hope cutting through her frustration. Sophie was different. She didn't scan the girl's outfit or judge her worth. She just did her job, treating her like a person, not a paycheck. Claire moved to a corner of the store, pretending to examine a pair of sunglasses. She pulled out her phone and typed quick notes. Emily ignored me, prioritized designer-clad woman. Ethan same, focused only on wealthy-looking customers. Sophie helped everyone, no bias. She glanced up, catching another interaction. A middle-aged woman in a plain cardigan approached Ethan, holding a scarf. "Can you tell me about this?" she asked. Ethan barely glanced at her. "It's silk, hand-stitched," he said, his tone flat. He turned away, spotting a man in a tailored coat entering the store. "Welcome in," he called, leaving the woman standing there, unanswered. Claire's blood boiled. She'd seen enough to confirm the complaints, but she wanted to test one more thing. She approached Emily again, this time holding a pair of earrings from a nearby display. "Can you tell me the price on these?" she asked. Emily sighed, barely, looking up. "It's on the tag," she said, her voice dripping with disinterest. Before Claire could respond, Emily turned to a new customer, a woman in a fur-trimmed jacket, and launched into a cheerful pitch about the store's latest collection. Claire stepped back, her hands trembling with suppressed anger. This wasn't just bad training or a bad day. Emily and Ethan were deliberately choosing who deserved their time, and it was always the customers who looked rich. Sophie, meanwhile, was the only one living up to the values Claire had built Luxe. Haven on, Claire's mind raced. She'd planned to visit other stores, to stay undercover for a full day, but the evidence was overwhelming. Her company, her dream, was being twisted into something elitist and exclusionary. She couldn't let it stand. She glanced at Sophie, who was now helping a teenage boy in a hoodie pick out a gift for his mother. Sophie's smile was patient, her questions thoughtful. The boy relaxed, nodding as she showed him a scarf. Claire's resolve hardened. She'd seen enough to act, but she wanted one final test. She'd try returning the sweater again, this time pushing Emily to see how far her bias went. If it played out the way she expected, she'd have all the ammunition she needed to shake this store to its core. She took a deep breath, clutching the sweater, and headed back toward the counter, her heart pounding with the weight of what was to come. Claire Donovan stood near the sleek black counter of Luxe Haven's Manhattan flagship, her fingers gripping the sweater she'd been trying to return for the past half hour. The store's polished ambient soft jazz, lavender-scented air, and racks of meticulously arranged designer goods felt like a mockery now. Her heart pounded, not with nerves but with a simmering fury that had built with every dismissive glance and biased interaction she'd witnessed. Emily Harper, the tall blonde behind the register, had brushed her off twice, prioritizing customers who dripped wealth. Ethan Carter, another employee, had ignored a girl in a sundress and a young man in a worn jacket, choosing instead to fawn over those in tailored coats and designer heels. Only Sophie Bennett, the petite brunette, had shown every customer the petit frosty respect Claire had built her company to deliver. The pattern was clear, and Claire had seen enough. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. Her faded hoodie and scuffed sneakers made her invisible to Emily and Ethan, but that was about to change. She'd planned to stay undercover longer, to gather more evidence across other stores. But the blatant favoritism she'd observed was undeniable. It wasn't just poor service. It was a betrayal of Luxe Haven's core values, a twisting of her vision into something elitist and exclusionary. She couldn't wait another minute to set things right. With a quiet determination, She stepped back to the counter, the sweater in hand, ready to push Emily one last time. "Excuse me," Claire said, her voice firm but calm. "I'd like to try returning this again." Emily's eyes flicked up. From her phone, her expression a mix of irritation and boredom. "I already told you," she said, her tone sharp. "No receipt, no return. Store policy." She barely looked at Claire, her attention drifting to a woman in a fur-trimmed coat, who just approached the counter. "Welcome in," Emily beamed, her voice suddenly warm. "How can I help you today?" Claire's jaw clenched. She glanced at the woman in the coat, who was holding a scarf with no tags or receipt. "Oh, I bought this a while ago," the woman sighed, laughing lightly. "I don't have the receipt, but I'd like to exchange it." "For you, I can make an exception," Emily said, her smile wide as she took the scarf and began processing the exchange. Claire's blood boiled. The double standard was blatant, laid bare in front of her. She stepped closer, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "So, it's store policy for me, but not for her?" Claire asked, tilting her head toward the woman in the coat. Her tone was even, but there was an edge to it that made Emily pause. Emily's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, crossing her arms. "Look, we have a standard to maintain. If we let just anyone walk in and demand returns without proof, this place would fall apart." Her words hung in the air, dripping with condescension. A few customers nearby glanced over, sensing the tension. Claire's eyes darkened. "Just anyone?" she repeated, her voice low but sharp. "So, you decide who belongs here based on how they look?" Emily's mouth opened, but before she could respond, Sophie approached, having just finished helping the girl in the sundress. "We're supposed to ask for a receipt," Sophie said cautiously, glancing between Claire and Emily. "But if the item's unworn with tags, we can process it at the manager's discretion." Claire nodded, her gaze never leaving Emily. "And you're the acting manager, right, Emily?" Emily straightened, her confidence returning. "Yeah, I am. And I said no receipt, no return. That's how it works." She shot a look at Sophie, as if daring her to contradict. Claire let the silence stretch, her heart pounding with the weight of what she was about to do. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, and tapped the screen a few times. The Luxe Haven website loaded, and she turned it toward Emily, displaying the Our Leadership page. Her own face stared back. Claire Donovan, CEO, in a tailored blazer, her hair sleek and her expression commanding. The contrast with her current appearance was stark, and the realization hit Emily like a wave. Emily's face drained of color. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came. Ethan, who had been refolding shirts nearby, froze, his eyes widening as he caught sight of the screen. Sophie's gaze darted between the phone and Claire, her expression a mix of shock and awe. The store seemed to hold its breath, the jazz playlist suddenly feeling too loud in the silence. "I'm Claire Donovan," Claire said, her voice steady but laced with steel. "I own this company, and for the last 30 minutes, I've watched. You and Ethan decide who deserves respect and who doesn't. You've made it clear that people like me dressed like this don't belong in your version of Luxe Haven." Emily stammered, her hands clenching at her sides. I didn't." "No, it was you. I was just, you meant exactly what you said." Claire cut her off, her tone unyielding. "You think this store is for a certain clientele. You think you get to choose who's worthy based on their clothes or their wallet. That's not just bad business. It's disgusting." Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to the floor. "We were just trying to maintain the store's image," he said, his voice tentative. "You know, cater to the right people." "The right people?" Claire's voice was cold. "Every person who walks through that door is a customer. Every customer deserves respect." That's what Luxe Haven is supposed to be. Sophie, who had been silent, spoke up, her voice soft but clear. I didn't know this was happening on purpose, she said, her hands clasped in front of her. I just tried to help everyone the way I'd want to be treated. Claire gave her a small nod. And I noticed that, Sophie, you're the only one here acting like a true employee of this company. Before anyone could respond, the glass doors swung open, and Diane Miller, the loyal customer whose email had sparked Claire's investigation, stepped inside. She was dressed simply again, a cardigan and slacks, but her presence carried weight. She froze, sensing the tension, and her eyes locked onto Claire. Recognition flickered across her face. Claire? She said, her voice a mix of surprise and relief. You're here. Claire nodded, softening slightly. Diane, I'm sorry for what you went through last week. I'm here to make sure it never happens again. Diane's expression hardened as she glanced at Emily. I told you how they treated me, she said. Like I was nothing because I wasn't wearing Chanel. I've been shopping here for years, and I've never felt so small. Claire's resolve deepened. She turned back to Emily and Ethan. This stops now. Emily, Ethan, hand in your name tags and store keys. I'll be reviewing security footage with the district manager to ensure this is handled properly. But as of this moment, you're done here. Emily's face tightened, her hands trembling as she unpinned her name tag and set it on the counter. With a sharp click, "This is unfair," she muttered. I was just doing what we've always done. You can't just fire us like this. I'm not firing you yet, Claire said, her voice calm but firm. I'm suspending you pending a full review. We have policies for a reason, and I'll follow them. But what I've seen today tells me you don't belong in this company. Ethan hesitated, his fingers twitching before he yanked off his name tag and tossed it onto the counter. He avoided Claire's gaze, his jaw tight. Without a word, he turned and headed to the back room, presumably to grab his things. Emily lingered, her eyes flashing with defiance, but she followed, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Claire turned to Sophie, who looked stunned but composed. Sophie, you've shown what this company should be. I need you to help keep things running until we get a new manager in here. Can you do that? Sophie blinked, her hands still clasped. I have never done anything like that before, but I'll try. I know you will, Claire said, her tone softening. I saw how you treated that girl in the sundress, the boy in the hoodie. You're exactly what Luxe Haven needs. The customers in the store had started to notice the commotion, some whispering, others openly staring. Claire raised her voice just enough to carry. If anyone here felt ignored or unwelcome today, I want to apologize. That's not how we do business, and it won't happen again. Diane gave a small nod, her expression softening. A man in a hoodie near the back, the same one Emily had brushed off earlier, looked at Claire, his eyes wary but appreciative. Claire met his gaze, committing his face to memory. She'd make sure he got the service he deserved next time. As Emily and Ethan disappeared into the back, Claire felt the weight of the moment settle over her. This wasn't just about one store or two employees. It was about reclaiming the soul of her company. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick message to Rachel Brooks, the district manager. Get to the Manhattan store. We have work to do. The confrontation was over, but the real work was just beginning. The air in Luxe Haven's Manhattan flagship felt heavier after Emily Harper and Ethan Carter walked out, their heels and footsteps echoing into silence. Claire Donovan stood near the sleek black counter, her faded hoodie and scuffed sneakers, a stark reminder of her undercover mission. The jazz playlist still hummed softly, but the store's polished elegance now seemed fragile, tainted by the biases she'd exposed. Customers lingered, some casting curious glances, others whispering about the confrontation they'd overheard. Sophie Bennett, the only employee who'd shown genuine care for every customer, stood near a rack of handbags, her hands clasped tightly, her expression a mix of relief and uncertainty. Claire's phone buzzed in her pocket, a message from Rachel Brooks, the district manager. On my way. Be there in 20. Claire nodded to herself. The real work was about to begin. She turned to Sophie, who was straightening a display with meticulous care. Sophie, Claire said, her voice calm but firm. I meant what I said. I need you to help keep this store running until we get a new manager. Can you handle that? Sophie's eyes widened, her fingers pausing on the leather strap. I'll do my best, she said, her voice soft but steady. But I've never been in charge before. I'm not sure I'm ready. You're more ready than you think, Claire said, offering a small smile. I saw how you treated that girl in the sundress, the boy in the hoodie. You didn't judge them. You helped them. That's what this company is supposed to be about. Sophie nodded slowly, a flicker of confidence crossing her face. Claire's gaze swept the store, landing on a man in a worn jacket near the back, the same one Emily had dismissed earlier. Jason Lee. He was browsing a shelf of wallets, his posture hesitant, as if he wasn't sure he belonged. Claire made a mental note to ensure he left with a better experience this time. Before she could act, the glass doors swung open, and Rachel Brooks strode in, a leather notebook tucked under her arm. Rachel's sharp blazer and no-nonsense demeanor contrasted with the store's soft lighting, but her expression was tight with concern. Claire, she said, pulling her aside near a display of silk scarves. I got your message. What happened? Claire recounted the morning, Emily's and Ethan's blatant favoritism, their dismissal of customers who didn't look wealthy, and Sophie's consistent kindness. I saw it myself, Claire said, her voice low but intense. They were choosing who to serve based on appearances. It's not just bad service, it's against everything Luxe stands for. Rachel's pen tapped against her notebook, her brow furrowed. This could be a PR nightmare if it gets out. We need to handle it carefully. Then we get ahead of it, Claire said. But first, we need to review the security footage to confirm what I saw. I suspended Emily and Ethan, but we'll follow protocol to make it official. Rachel nodded, her expression resolute. I'll pull the footage. If it backs up your account, we'll process their termination through HR. But Emily was muttering about unfair dismissal as she left. She might cause trouble, maybe even threaten to sue. Let her try, Claire said, her tone unwavering. We have evidence, and I'm not backing down. This isn't just about them. It's about fixing a culture that let this happen. Rachel led Claire to the back office, a small space with a sleek desk and a wall of monitors. They sat together, fast-forwarding through hours of footage from the morning. The cameras captured everything. Emily's cold dismissal of Claire's return request, Ethan ignoring the girl in the sundress to fawn over a man with a Rolex, and Sophie's warm assistance to every customer, regardless of their attire. One clip showed Jason Lee, the man in the worn jacket, standing awkwardly as Emily brushed him off with a curt, "Whatever's out is what we have." Claire's stomach twisted at the sight. Each frame was a nail in the coffin of the store's broken culture. That's enough, Claire said, leaning back. Document it all. I want their termination finalized by end of day. Rachel hesitated. This could stir up the staff at other stores. Emily's been here for years. She has friends in the chain. And some might argue she was just following an unspoken rule in luxury retail. Prioritize the big spenders. Then they're working for the wrong company, Claire snapped. Luxe Haven isn't about catering to egos. It's about creating an experience for everyone. If anyone else thinks like Emily, they can leave too. Rachel nodded, jotting a note. I'll draft a memo to reassure the staff and start looking for a temporary manager. In the meantime, what about Sophie? Claire glanced toward the sales floor, where Sophie was helping a middle-aged woman in a plain cardigan choose a scarf. She's stepping up for now, Claire said. "But she's young, inexperienced. I want someone seasoned to guide her until we find a permanent replacement." Back on the sales floor, Claire approached Sophie, who was now ringing up the woman's purchase. The customer smiled, clearly pleased with the attention. Claire waited until the woman left before speaking. "You're doing great, Sophie. Keep it up, and let me know if you need anything." Sophie exhaled, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's a lot, but I want to make this right. I always thought Emily's way of doing things was off, but I didn't know how to say it without causing trouble." "You don't have to worry about that anymore," Claire said. "Focus on treating every customer the way you've been doing. That's all I ask." As Sophie returned to straightening displays, the glass doors opened again, and Jason Lee re-entered, his worn jacket slightly askew. Claire watched as Sophie noticed him immediately, her smile warm but professional. "Welcome back," Sophie said, approaching him. "Did you want to look at that shirt again? I can check for a mediums in the back." Jason blinked, clearly surprised by the change in tone from his earlier experience. Yeah," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "If it's not too much trouble." "No trouble at all," Sophie said, heading to the stockroom. Claire watched, a quiet satisfaction settling in her chest. This was how it should have been all along. Jason lingered, his eyes scanning the store. When Sophie returned with the shirt, he took it, inspecting it carefully. "Thanks," he said, his voice softer. "I didn't expect anyone to actually help me today." Sophie tilted her head, curious. "Why not?" Jason hesitated, then shrugged. "The last lady I talked to acted like I didn't belong here. I'm an artist, you know? I don't dress fancy, but I've got clients who buy stuff like this. Thought I'd check it out for myself." Claire's ears perked up. She stepped closer, keeping her tone casual. "I'm sorry you had a bad experience earlier," she said. "That's not how we do things here. I hope Sophie's taking care of you now." Jason nodded, a small smile breaking through. "Yeah, she's great. I'll probably come back. Might even post about this place online. Let people know it's not what I thought." Claire's heart lifted. "We'd appreciate that," she said, handing him a business card with the store's social media handle. "Let us know how we're doing." As Jason left with his purchase, Claire turned to Sophie. "Keep an eye on him. If he posts, we need to amplify it. We're not just fixing this store, we're rebuilding trust." Sophie nodded, her expression determined. "I'll make sure everyone who comes in feels welcome." Claire's phone buzzed again, a message from her board of directors requesting an urgent call. She sighed, knowing the news of the suspensions would raise eyebrows. Some board members, focused on profits, might argue that prioritizing high-end clients was good business. Claire braced herself for the fight. She wasn't just cleaning house in one store. She was setting the stage for a company-wide overhaul. Rachel emerged from the back office, her notebook now filled with notes. "Footage is saved and HR has been notified," she said. "I've also reached out to Michael Evans, a former manager from our Chicago store. He's available to step in as interim manager. He's tough but perfect to stabilize things." "Good," Claire said. "Get him here tomorrow and start drafting a plan for Stafford training. This isn't just about Manhattan, it's about every store." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "That's a big move, Claire. It'll cost time and money. The board won't like it." "Then they'll have to deal with me," Claire said, her voice steady. "I didn't build this company to exclude people. If we lose that, we lose everything." As Rachel headed back to the office to make calls, Claire lingered on the sales floor, watching Sophie assist a new customer, a teenage girl in a hoodie, her eyes wide with excitement. Sophie's patience and warmth were a stark contrast to the cold elitism Claire had witnessed earlier. For the first time that day, Claire felt a flicker of hope. The road ahead would be tough. Emily's threats, the board's skepticism, the need to retrain an entire chain But Sophie's example reminded her why she'd started Luxe Haven. This was her chance to reclaim her vision, and she wasn't backing down. Claire Donovan stood in the back office of Luxe Haven's Manhattan flagship, her laptop open to a draft of a company-wide directive. The soft glow of the screen illuminated her face, still marked by the intensity of the previous day's confrontation. The suspensions of Emily Harper and Ethan Carter had sent ripples through the store, and the security footage had confirmed their biased behavior, paving the way for their formal termination. Sophie Bennett was stepping up, guiding the store, alongside interim manager Michael Evans, while Rachel Brooks, the district manager, was coordinating next steps. But Claire knew the problem wasn't confined to one location. The complaints she'd received from Manhattan to Boston to Los Angeles pointed to a deeper cultural rot across her 11-store chain. Fixing it would require more than a single dramatic reveal. It would demand a complete overhaul of how Luxe Haven operated. She typed swiftly, finalizing a memo that would shake the company to its core. Effective immediately, all Luxe Haven staff will undergo mandatory retraining on unconscious bias and customer service. No exceptions, from sales associates to senior managers. Our mission is to create a luxury experience for every customer, regardless of appearance or background. Failure to comply will result in disciplinary action. Claire paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. This wasn't just a policy change, it was a declaration of war on the elitism that had crept into her company. She hit send, the email pinging to every store manager and corporate employee. There was no turning back now. Rachel Brooks knocked softly and entered, her leather notebook tucked under her arm. "The memo's out," she said, settling into a chair. "But I'm already getting pushback." The manager in Chicago, Lydia, called. "Mimi, she says her team's been trained to prioritize high-value clients. She thinks it's how luxury retail works." Claire's eyes narrowed. Then Lydia's been running her store wrong. Luxury isn't about exclusion. It's about making every customer feel valued. If she can't get on board, she can find another job. Rachel sighed, jotting a note. "I'll set up a call with her, but this mindset isn't just Lydia. Some staff see catering to wealth as the industry standard. Changing that won't be easy." "Then we make it non-negotiable," Claire said. "I've hired a consultant, Dr. Carnellis, to design the retraining program. She's an expert in workplace bias. I want it rolled out across all stores within 2 months. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "That's a tight timeline. The board's already grumbling about the cost. And after yesterday, they're worried about bad press. Emily's been texting other employees, claiming she was unfairly targeted." Claire's jaw tightened. Emily's threat to sue lingered in her mind, but the security footage and customer complaints were ironclad. "Let her talk," Claire said. "The truth is on our side. But we can't just react. We need to show customers we're different." Now, as if on cue, Claire's phone buzzed with a notification. She opened it to find a social media post from Jason Lee, the artist artist she'd seen dismissed by Emily the previous day. The post was a photo of the navy shirt he'd bought, paired with a glowing review. "Thought Luxe Haven was just for the elite, but Sophie at the Manhattan store changed my mind. She treated me like I mattered, even in my old jacket. Great service, great vibe. Check them out." The post had already garnered hundreds of likes, with comments praising the store's new approach. Claire smiled faintly. Jason's influence as an up-and-coming artist could shift the narrative, but one post wasn't enough. She needed every store to deliver the experience he'd described. She forwarded the post to Rachel. "Amplify this," she said. "Share it on our official accounts. If customers see we're changing, it'll rebuild trust." Rachel nodded, making a note. "It's a start. But we're also getting flack from some regulars' wealthy clients who like being treated like VIPs." A few called corporate this morning, complaining that the staff's too attentive to everyone now. Claire leaned back, crossing her arms. Good. That's the point. If they want special treatment, they can shop somewhere else. Our brand is about inclusion, not ego-stroking. Rachel's pen paused. You're taking a risk, Claire. Some of those clients spend big. And we'll keep their business if we make them feel valued without ignoring everyone else, Claire said. This isn't just about today. It's about the future of Luxe Haven. Back on the sales floor, Sophie was proving that future was possible. Claire stepped out of the office to find her training a new employee, a nervous college student named Mia, on how to greet customers. It's not about their clothes or their wallet, Sophie was saying, her voice steady but warm. It's about making them feel like they belong here. Claire watched, a flicker of pride swelling in her chest. Sophie's inexperience showed in her hesitant gestures, but her sincerity was undeniable. She was setting a tone that Emily and Ethan had never bothered to try. Later that afternoon, Claire joined a video call with all store managers, her face projected onto screens across the country. She didn't sugarcoat her words. I built Luxe Haven to be a place where everyone feels special, not just the wealthy, she said, her voice firm. I went undercover in Manhattan yesterday and saw staff dismissing customers based on how they looked. That ends now. You're all getting retraining, and I expect you to lead by example. If you can't, there's the door. The manager's faces, displayed in a grid on her screen, range from nodding agreement to visible discomfort. Lydia from Chicago spoke up, her tone defensive. With respect, Claire, prioritizing high spenders drives sales. It's how we've always operated. Then you've been operating wrong, Claire shot back. I started in retail, folding clothes for minimum wage. I was ignored by managers because I didn't look like I belonged. That's not the legacy I want for this company. We're better than that. Lydia fell silent, her expression tight. Other managers murmured agreement, but Claire knew the resistance would linger. Changing a culture wasn't a one-day fix. It was a battle. Back in Manhattan, Sophie was taking her new role seriously. Claire found her at the counter, scribbling notes on a pad. Ideas for the store, Sophie explained, blushing slightly. I was thinking maybe we could host a styling event open to everyone, not just VIPs. Show people how to mix our pieces with what they already own. It could make luxury feel accessible. Claire's eyes lit up. That's brilliant, Sophie. Write it up and send it to me. I want to see more ideas like that. Sophie hesitated, then nodded. I just want people to feel welcome here, you know? Like they're part of something special. You're making that happen, Claire said. Keep it up, and I want you in our management training program. You've got the instinct for leadership. Sophie's cheeks flushed, but she stood. Taller. I'd like that. I want to help make this place what you envisioned. As the day ended, Claire sat in the back office, reflecting on the challenges ahead. The board's skepticism, pushback from other stores, and the risk of losing some high-end clients loomed large. But Sophie's ideas, Jason's post, and the small changes she'd already seen in Manhattan gave her hope. She wasn't just fixing a problem. She was rebuilding her dream, brick by brick. The morning sun filtered through the glass facade of Luxe Haven's Manhattan flagship, casting a warm glow over the racks of silk dresses and polished leather handbags. Claire Donovan stood just inside the entrance, her faded hoodie replaced by a tailored blazer, her hair swept into a sleek bun. It had been 2 weeks since her undercover mission exposed the discriminatory practices of Emily Harper and Ethan Carter, and the store felt different, lighter, more welcoming. Sophie Bennett was behind the counter, training a new employee with the same warmth she'd shown every customer that fateful day. Michael Evans, the interim manager, moved efficiently through the aisles, his no-nonsense energy steadying the team. Claire's heart swelled with cautious optimism. The changes were taking root, but she knew this was only the beginning. Sophie glanced up, spotting Claire, and offered a quick nod before returning to her work. She was showing a teenage girl in a denim jacket how to pair a scarf with a casual outfit, her voice patient and encouraging. Claire watched, a smile tugging at her lips. Sophie had grown into her role, her confidence blossoming under Michael's guidance. The store's energy had shifted customers, from those in sneakers to those in designer coats, were greeted with equal care. Claire's vision for Luxe Haven, one she'd feared was lost, was coming back to life. The glass doors swung open, and Diane Miller, the loyal customer whose email had sparked Claire's investigation, stepped inside. She wore a simple cardigan, her silver hair pulled back, but her presence carried a quiet dignity. She caught Claire's eye and smiled. "I had to come back," Diane said, approaching. "I wanted to see if things had really changed." "They have," Claire said, gesturing toward Sophie. "And they'll keep changing." "I'm sorry for what you went through, Diane. It won't happen again." Diane nodded, her gaze softening. "I can tell. The staff, they're different now. That young woman, Sophie, helped me find a dress last week. She made me feel like I belonged here, not like an afterthought." Claire's chest tightened with gratitude. "That's what we're about. Thank you for giving us another chance." As Diane browsed, Claire stepped onto the sales floor, her eyes scanning the space. The retraining program, led by Dr. Corinne Ellis, was underway across all 11 stores. Early reports from Rachel Brooks showed progress staff in Boston and Los Angeles were adapting, though some, like Chicago's Lydia, remained resistant. Claire had a call scheduled with Lydia later that day, and she was prepared to be firm. Luxe Haven's future depended on a culture of inclusion, and she wouldn't compromise. Sophie approached, her notepad tucked under her arm. "I sent you the proposal for the styling event," she said, her voice steady but tinged with excitement. "I think it could bring in new customers, people who might not think luxury retail is for them." "I read it," Claire said. "It's smart. Sophie, I'm approving it, and I want you to lead it. You're ready for more responsibility." Sophie's eyes widened. "Me? I mean, I'd love to, but what about Michael?" "Michael's here to stabilize things," Claire said. "But you've got the heart for this. I'm enrolling you in our management training program. If you keep this up, you'll be running a store of your own soon." Sophie's cheeks flushed, but she stood taller. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Claire said, her voice warm. She glanced at her phone, where a notification from the company's social media account caught her eye. Jason Lee, the artist who'd been dismissed by Emily, had posted again, praising Sophie's service and tagging Luxe Haven. The post had gone viral, drawing thousands of likes and comments from customers sharing their own stories of feeling welcomed or not at luxury stores. Claire forwarded it to Rachel with a note. "Keep pushing this narrative." It's working. As the morning unfolded, Claire stepped outside, the crisp air a welcome contrast to the store's warmth. She stood on the sidewalk, watching the city come. Alive taxis honking, pedestrians rushing past. Luxe Haven was on the right path, but challenges loomed. The board still questioned the cost of retraining. Some high-end clients grumbled about the loss of exclusivity, and Emily's threats of a lawsuit lingered, though HR's documentation had silenced her for now. Claire knew the road ahead would be tough, expanding the brand, competing with bigger retailers, and ensuring every store embraced her vision. But for the first time in months, she felt confident. Sophie's growth, Diane's trust, and the small victories in Manhattan were proof that change was possible. Claire took a final glance at the store, its sign gleaming in the sunlight. This was her legacy, and she'd fight to protect it. With a determined nod, she walked into the morning, ready for whatever came next. This story of Claire Donovan and Luxe Haven is more than a tale of corporate reform. It's a powerful reminder of the importance of fairness and respect in every interaction. Claire's journey underscores that true leadership means standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable or costly. Her decision to go undercover wasn't just about fixing a business. It was about reclaiming a vision that values every person, regardless of how they look or what they wear. Sophie's growth shows how one person's kindness can spark change, while Emily and Ethan's mistakes highlight the harm of unconscious bias. The story teaches us that luxury isn't about exclusion. It's about creating experiences that uplift everyone. It challenges us to reflect on our own actions. Do we judge others by appearances, or do we strive to treat everyone with dignity? We hope Claire's story resonates with you and inspires you to champion fairness in your own world. If you enjoyed this tale of transformation and want to hear more stories that celebrate human values and resilience, subscribe to Legacy Stories on YouTube or your favorite platform. Join our community to discover narratives that spark reflection and inspire change. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and let's keep these stories alive.